Hello, welcome to the official brand new show called Aussie Footy Show. My host BJ, Ben, and I was co-host Aidan. This is the official episode of what you're known as, I just mentioned, Aussie Footy Show, where all the latest AFL, the SNFL, South Australian National Football League, Victoria Football League, known as VFL, and Western Australian National Football League, known as the Waffle, all the latest results later each week. So this episode, Aidan and I will be showing our predictions of our early draft of the AFL later, starting from 18th to 1st. So I may as well just get underway. So in the way of this team, they've gone for a rebuilding game, and it's been 20 years since they've done it, back in 2004 now. Where did I find that? All on the Fox Footy and during the season, and it's the first time in 20 years. Richmond, in my respect, will be in at this point of their season. Will finish 18th. Yes, they've got a young list. Yes, they've done really well in the draft. They lost some talent. Went from the Gold Coast and Fremantle, which I'll move up to that later on. So this is what I think what Richmond can bring. So being the best team in the competition for 6 years, back in 2019, it's now, and it was that time long ago, time to make it into a rebuilding time again. It's the first time since 2004. They've done well. Could Richmond play some good footy during this season? I think so, but they'll get some wins, but I believe so. So that's my thoughts. Aidan, I'll let you share who is your 18th.
Yeah, so Ben, I'm thinking along the same lines as you here. Richmond are taking the spoon out this year. Not a good medal to have, but it's better than coming 17th and getting nothing. There's something in the trophy cabinet at the end of the year for coming 18th. You know, as Ben, you said, Richmond really their first rebuild since 2004. They built that team up over 10-15 years, won their premierships. They've had to fall now. They've also lost a lot of players over the off-season. So Liam Baker going to West Coast, Shea Bolton to Fremantle, Graham also to West Coast. The retirements of Grimes and Martin, Pickett, Naismith, and Rioli being traded to Gold Coast really hurts their stocks. They have picked up a lot of players for the draft though. So Sam Layla and Josh Smiley, both top 10 picks in this year's draft. Then you've also got Taj Hodgson and Jonathan Fall inside that top 20, but that's going to take some time for that side to develop. So Richmond will be finishing with the wooden spoon in 2025 in my books.
So Aidan, I'll let you now share who is in 17th place in your opinion.
17th place, I have the Gold Coast Suns. I think they, for a team who had so much confidence and bravado going into having their new coach come in and Damien Hardwick and saying, oh, we've got 80% of our premiership list here, you know, let's go take on the world. You know, you're not taking on the world. You're taking on whoever's, you know, outside the top 10 in the AFL, because you're not a top 10 team, and the teams who are around you this year, I think, are going to improve more than you are, because home's not going to be a fortress for you again. You are going to lose a lot of games at home this year compared to last year. So that is going to be the big thing for Gold Coast, is if they can keep home a fortress, they could contend for finals, but I just don't see that happening.
Okay, yeah. So I'm going a little bit different, losing a lot of experience, and I'm going with West Coast. Now, why West Coast? They're just not there again, and bring new coach, you know, Adam Simpson's left and so on. They, like I mentioned, some great players in the off season and rebuilding West Coast. Could they see another rebuilding season for West Coast? Yes, absolutely. They've got some mix into it, and I think, do they have some excitement? And I just believe, could we see I think everyone would say they're like another, North Melbourne. They're just not there this year. But I think they've still got belief, West Coast. But they'll get some wins, but a challenge ahead in the rebuilding. So I'll now continue into 16th place. North Melbourne. Now, why North Melbourne? They had enough being on the bottom. I've done with them on the bottom. Now, back in the olden days, like in the 90s, I wasn't a fan of them because they were very hard. They were like, say, Geelong, not besides Geelong, but Collingwood, how hard they were. Brisbane, Sydney, how hard they be, and I don't mind them, but North Melbourne wasn't built with them, and I like them now because they're on the bottom. But look at them, they are building it, they're improving. They're very fast, they're jumping because they're kangaroos. They like to jump, they're very quick. That's what their strength is. But another reliable off season for North Melbourne, bringing some experience from different clubs like Luke Parker, Jack Darling. Look at them. midfield forward. That's going to really put the club together. And could we see these new players at North Melbourne have a good year? Yes. I think the voice needs to be around the head coach, Alison Clarkson, and bring some joy to the club. Aidan, now it's time for your 16th place.
In 16th place, I've gone with West Coast. So, West Coast, they have lost a lot of players, and they've made some questionable decisions at the trade table this past year as well, where they allowed pick 3 to go out to the Blues for Matt Owies. Matt Owies, who was going to be delisted by the Blues at the end of this year as well. So, Carlton's basically delisted the bloke for pick 3. That's not a good move on West Coast behalf, losing pick 3 to Carlton. Their biggest pickup was pick 16, Bo Allen, who's a really good player to come into the side from the draft. They've also, from the trade table, they've brought in Liam Baker, they've brought in Jack Graham, but they've also lost players. So they've lost Tom Barrack going to Hawthorn, they've lost Jack Darling going to North Melbourne, they've had the retirement of Andrew Gaff. They've still got some good pieces. There are teams stronger than them right now, and that's why I have them at 16th.
Okay, that sounds quite good with Westwood in your pin. So, Aidan, now share what is in your 15th.
For me is North Melbourne. Pretty much like what you said earlier about them. They're a team who are not going to be on the bottom, but they're a team who I think have the resources to jump out of that bottom 3 and into that next group of teams. They've made some good pickups. They've made a lot of good draft picks, and they're a team who I think could take on quite a few teams this year and pull off some shock results. So they've brought in players. They've brought in Caleb Daniel. They've brought in Jack Darling. They've got Finn O'Sullivan at pick 2. They're bringing in Luke Parker, and they really don't lose anyone through delisting yet. Probably the biggest names that they did lose were Hugh Greenwood, who retired, Liam Shield, who retired, and Tanner Thomas, who's been out of action for the last couple of years as well. So I've got North at 15 because they're a team on the improve, but they're not quite ready to take the jump yet.
That sounds right, and very similar positions as well. Well, my theme is now Melbourne. Now, Melbourne, what an off-season for, I gotta say, was them, and lost some great players, but one of the biggest players, and it's gonna be around, LA's done this, and I'll share LA down up the ladder, but they lost the top best and fairest in the top 3, Alex Newballer. Now, he was a LA Crows growing up, he's now playing that club, and I tell you right now, Melbourne's going to have to really look out. It is a slippy slide, part of a rebuilding phase. Have they got enough magic play to reach improvement? At this stage, it's 15th. I could change. It might be I keep it that place, but at this stage, I think 15th place. Can Melbourne have an okay season? Yeah, but it's a rebuilding for Melbourne or club. Coming to 14th place, and I like to share it's St Kilda. Now, what? At this stage, it's 14th. I could change it. It could be close for St Kilda, and could we see improvement St Kilda? Yes. I think St Kilda could be close to making the final. But do St Kilda have a team? In my thought, yes, they do. So, in what I'm saying they do is they're really a iffy height balance. They're not great in final. And maybe hear the quiz you'll hear soon about the St Kilda is how many premierships have they made? And you will know the answer. 1 premiership. That's how many grand finals they've made to make 1 premiership. So, it's history that yes, they can play finals, but can they stay and win one? I like in the history. I love to see St Kilda win a premiership in sometime soon, but it is what it is. So that's my thoughts in 14 plays for St Kilda. Aidan, for 14 players.
Yeah, so my 14th, I've gone with the Melbourne Demons. And, you know, I've said on this show plenty of times before, since they won the premiership, they are going further and further away from winning another one. And they've continued to slide this year with both Petraka's injury and Oliver on the bubble of staying or going. There's not a lot of strong foundations there at Melbourne at the moment, and that list is wearing, not just in age, but in quality and who they're able to bring in asset-wise. Their biggest pick up for the year would be Harvey Langford. They got a pick 6 in the draft, but they've lost players. They lost Brayshaw due to concussion syndrome. Ben Brown, who's been playing VFL for a few years, is retired, and they lose Alex Neil-Bourne to Adelaide. So there's some big pieces of Melbourne's list that have come off this year, and they're going to take another couple of years to just rejuvenate that list because the big 3 of Gawn, Oliver, Petraka getting older, and time is running out for them to make a real contention of another premiership. It won't happen this year, possibly next year.
Okay, so I'll continue on to Gold Coast, and you'll do whoever in 13th. But I mentioned Gold Coast. Why 13th for Gold Coast? Gold Coast are really odd at the moment, and they've never improved themselves to play finals. Season 2024, they made a statement early, but you can't play 10 games to make a final. It will not work. Can we see improvement from Gold Coast Suns? Can they play better? Can they be stronger? That's the question. And I believe Gold Coast can play stronger than last season. I think they could. Can they move up the ladder? That's the biggest thing. And yes, they bring some talent from other clubs, but it's not enough from Dane Hardwick club. It's not the same Dane Hardwick we see at Richmond. When he's a coach at Richmond, that's now gone. Gold Coast are a different environment. And then, yes, they do get big crowds, but not enough. Not like a Richmond Army being there more than Gold Coast. But going back, my thoughts is, could we see a better Gold Coast in season 2025? Well, let's just hopefully we can see that as an improvement. So, Aidan?
Yeah, so my 13th place, I've gone with the Bombers. And I've gone with the Bombers because they're a strong team who can compete. And we saw them compete last year, and I was really impressed with them last year. I don't think they've improved enough based on the teams around them to make the jump up the ladder into that next group. Their biggest in, they had no trade-ins during the trade period. Their biggest in is Isaac Kako through the draft at pick 13. He's obviously an Essendon Academy player and a good pickup for them, but again, he's a rookie. It's going to take some time to develop at AFL level. They had some big outside, and this is the thing about why they have to bring in more players for me to think of them in that next group of teams. They lose Dyson Heppel and they lose Jake Kelly, both retiring, and then they also lose Jake Stringer going to GWS, and you know what they're bringing into what they're losing is not equaling well for me, so I see them sitting around that 13th spot again this season.
Well, we're now coming to 12th spot, so Aidan, I'll let you now share the 12th spot.
My 12th spot, this is a contentious one. I'm going to go GWS at 12, and they have lost quite a lot of players, so they lose Cumming, they lose Haynes, they lose Peatling, they lose Perryman. They're the four big ones that they lose. They do bring in Jake Stringer, but the core of that team is getting older. Toby Green probably doesn't have that long left. Harry Himmelberg probably doesn't have that long left. Whoever else they've got from their early days are reaching the end of their careers, so this is probably going to be the start of the slide for GWS, and I'm going to put them at 12 because those players that they lost far outweigh anything that they could have brought in. And I look at the names: Cumming, Haynes, Peatling, Perryman. Those are players who made that team a contender. Now we do focus on players like Toby Green and Jesse Hogan and Jake Riccardi when we talk about GWS. It's these other guys who help that team stay up and in the top 8 and the top 4. So with them coming off, I see GWS a slide beginning, and they're going to end at 12th this year.
Well, as you mentioned, your 13th Essendon, I'm going with 12th. Now, the worst percentage in last season of under 100, and they were lucky to even play fine. Will Essendon improve their percentage this season? The answer is yes. They can do it, but can they win big? A decent amount, not win by 3 or 4 points. Every game was close for Essendon, and they'll be lucky to even get a victory. My reason is 12th spot for Essendon. I think, yes, they've lost players. Yes, they only got the 13th spot at draft pick. And that's it. You know, they lost some good body in the backup rucks, you know, and some of retirement. Jack Jr.'s gone to GWS, as Aidan mentioned. You know, can we see a quick improved rebuild Essendon, my thought, and that. So we got into the 11th spot of my predictions. That's why Aidan. So I'll let Aidan now share the 11th spot.
Yep, so for my 11th spot, I've got the St Kilda Football Club. And I think I've gone with St Kilda because I think they're a team who's going to hold in that group of teams who are just below the bubble of if they go in or go out in the final week, just like they were this year, and they have been the last 2 years under Ross Lyon, 1 year in, 1 year out. They've brought in some big players. They bring in Jack Carroll, they bring in Jack McRae, they bring in Alex Taru, and they bring in Toby Travaglia. So they've got some big ins, some well-established AFL names, and some rookies looking to make an impact. They lose Josh Barrell, they lose Tom Campbell, they lose Brad Crouch, so they lose Tim Membry, so then they lose Seb Ross. So there's a couple of players I think that they should have kept if they wanted to have a real shot at the 8, but what they have brought in is enough to hold them in that next group of teams who will probably be just outside the bubble spots going into the final week of the season. So they are my 11th spot.
Now, I don't want to be too harsh and too nasty, but I'm going for the other South Australian team, Port Adelaide, 11th spot. Now, this is the biggest one heard from, do they got a reasonable good list? I think they do. I think Port Adelaide have a good list. But can they play to the big dance, known as the grand final? No, they can't. They cannot play finals at home and lose. They've done to Western Bulldogs, to Richmond, to Geelong. Doesn't matter who you play. You're playing of your home crowd. Play well. Injuries come in, retired players come in, like Charlie Dixon's now done. Who's going to pay that whole? Believe me, Pollard has enough for that. In my opinion, they have given up play. And I'll share my thought very soon in my, I don't think anyone will actually like this, but yeah, I just think Port Adelaide is in my 11th spot, and if they have a good year, they have a good year, but if they don't, always next season. Coming 10th, and I'll go straight into it. So, Western Bulldogs. Now, this is a really interesting club that had so many up and downs since their Premiership days back in 2016. It's been 9 years since Western Bulldogs have not made a serious contender to play serious finals football, and reason why I put that in the mix, that can what Aidan called the bubble, so they're just outside that top, in and out, in and out. They do have a reasonable strength side, but do they have a stronger side? And there's so many talent in the forward all over, and I just believe, could Western Bulldogs play finals? I think they can, but I think one more year now, I reckon that'll be my thoughts for 10th spot for Western Bulldogs.
Funny you say the Doggies at 10, Ben, because I've got the Doggies at 10 as well.
Wow.
And I'm thinking along the same lines. I just think that right now the Doggies are one of those teams who are on the bubble. I think that their runners, one of those teams who are just sitting in the 8 year in year every year, is coming to an end. That their teams behind them are going to jump over them this year, and I'll get to that in a minute. They do lose some key players. I mean, they do lose some experience. So they lose players like Caleb Daniel to North Melbourne. They lose Jack McRae to St Kilda, and the big one being they lose Bailey Smith to the Cat. Their draft hand wasn't too good. Their highest pick was pick 20, Cooper Hines. He was a good player in his own right, but he'll take some time to develop. And they also bring in Matt Kennedy, who I just don't know how much help Matt Kennedy is going to be for the Doggies with their situation down there at the kennel. It's one of those situations where they are on the bubble. I could easily see them getting into the 8. It's just that I think their time in the 8 has come to an end, and there are going to be teams jumping them for those final spots in the 8.
Okay, so we're halfway through into 9th spot.
We are on the halfway mark on 9th review and thoughts for the early predictions, the 2025 AFL ladder heading to a break, and when we come back, Aidan and BJ will share from 9th to 1st. We will be right back. Welcome back to the Aussie Footy Show, presented by the BJ Show.
And running into Sydney is my choice of that. Now, why Sydney in this spot? I thought I'd put them in my top 4, and they're runners up. And what Geelong did back 3 years now, 2022 over, Sydney. Sydney had a rebuild. They finished around this position. They came play the grand final. They lost. They came back in this position. Roughly, this is my guess of 9th space at the moment. But what Sydney have lost? Yes, they've lost like Luke Parker, for example, in the half. Could Sydney week back into that top 4? I believe they can. I think, searching from the 2024 last season's grand final, yes, it's a heartbreak. You move on. That's what happens. I know what's like to play grand finals and all that, and you move on. Can Sydney, can they have that off-balance season that they just come back you never know, have a really straight, flat first half, and then second half strong all the way. And that's what good teams can do. So, I reckon Sydney's in 9th place for now, but it could change. Alright, Aidan, take away for your 9th place.
My first out, my 9th place team, are the Deadly Dockers of Fremantle, and I just can't see them getting in. Even with Shea Bolton, I can't see Freo getting in. They're a team who will find ways, they will find and invent new ways to fall over themselves and stumble over themselves and trip over themselves and keep themselves out of the 8, just like they did at the end of last year. And I mean, you can say, okay, they bring in Shea Bolton, surely they're a contender, yeah. They bring in Quinton Narkle as well as a small forward, very helpful. A couple of good draft picks as well, Murphy Reid. But they lose their mid-level. A lot of their mid-level guys and their replacement guys have come off. So, Josh Corbett retires, Tom Emmett comes off, Ethan Hughes comes off, Matt Taberner comes off. So they've got their high-end talent. They're projecting to hope that their mid-end guys are the guys they've recruited over the last couple of years through the draft. But I just can't see that happening. I haven't seen enough from those guys to really see Fremantle as a top 8 team. So that's the reason why I've had to put Fremantle as my first out at 9th place.
Okay, we've finally made it 8th spot. Alright, Aidan, I'll let you take away with your 8th spot.
In my 8th spot, I have the Geelong Cats. And I've got them in 8 because I can see them being in the finals. I don't know how well they're going to do with the age of their list over the course of a 24-week season. I think they are going to struggle with that, but I know Geelong, they do have the talent, they do have the numbers to get into that top 8. They will find a way. That's why I have them in 8th. They bring in some big players. So they bring in players. Well, their real big in was Bailey Smith. That's their real big in, and that is a big in. He's come off having the year out last year because of knee injuries. Trade to the Cat. He's ready to go again. They don't really lose too much apart. They do have the retirement of Tom Hawkins to deal with, as well as the delistings of Gary Rowan and Zach Tui. So there are some decent players coming off, but they're not. I mean, Tom Hawkins is a big player. Zach Tui is a handy player. Gary Rowan's a handy player. They also have the young guys coming through that we've seen. We've seen Max Holmes coming through. We've seen Sam DeConing come through. We've seen their young cats coming through and taking the next level of AFL football and keeping them going. So they do lose some players, but they bring in Bailey Smith, and I think that's going to be enough to get them into the 8. They'll get there with their last game of the year. They'll win themselves in, and they will be playing finals.
Now, this is the other rival, and it's the most common. Collingwood Matt plays 8th spot. Why Collingwood there? Okay, they lost players. They bring new players, and it's the one and only James Houston brings in. Now, how is Collingwood finishing 8th? I just don't think they are a top 4 team. I think they are into that position that they could not even snipped out. I think like Sydney or Western Bulldogs can push and get Collingwood out, or Port Adelaide can knock Collingwood out. So it's that really close of overall. I really think when Collingwood play finals, they are obviously they are always a very hard rival team to play in final, which I don't really enjoy, but that's football, unfortunately. But going back into the spirit of this team, I think let's see what happens during the season, and you never know what can happen with Collingwood. Oh, now we're going to 7. I'll start Adelaide Crows in my 7th, and okay, what an off season, and this is what Adelaide's done ever since Manny Nick come into the coach the Adelaide Crows. As for this man, the Adelaide Football Club, his 5th season, and he's still at the Adelaide Football Club. That's an achievement. I think it's one of the longest coaches almost there in history. And knowing that Manny Nix he has a great team behind him. And what Adelaide done is they've got some great talent. And one and only Isaac Cummings from GWS and Alex Numborland. And Aidan will share who's in, who's out from each team you may see or the other teams. But I just think we're going to have a really good, greatest year come under Manny Nix. And I think Adelaide Crows is very lucky to have him as a coach. In my opinion, absolutely. Let's see what happens. Everyone always surprised what Adelaide can do in the beginning, and hopefully brings them wins together and come together as one. And I think we've got a great, let's just say, good leadership. And I think these teams are coming 50, 100, 150, 200 experienced games are coming together in 300 or 250 as well. So that's my thoughts for 7 players for the Adelaide Footy Club. Aidan, take it away.
7, I've got the Adelaide Crows. They are a team who I think should be in. They should have been in 23. They should have been in 24. But this year, coming up 25, is in or bust for the Crows. If they don't get in, I can see Nick's getting the chop. I can see a lot of senior players getting the chop. Because this is a team who have been on the bubble the last 2 years and really should have been in both times. So, I mean, they clean out the low end. And this is the great thing for the Crows. They've cleaned out the low end. So they clean out Golan, Hamill, Elliot Himmelberg, McHenry and Parnell. Also the retirement of Rory Sloane. So that's the only real big name. I mean, Sloane hasn't been as prominent as he has been previously the last couple of years before he retired, but he's still a major name on the list that is coming off. But they bring in, and this is the thing with the Crows, they bring in Isaac Cummings. They bring in number 4 pick Sid Draper. They bring in Alex Neil-Bullen. They bring in James Peatling. They bring in Tyler Wells. This is a team who are saying to the competition, we are ready to go. We are contending for finals this year, and it's a sort of statement that I think the Crows have to stick with the whole year. They can't, if they drop a few early and they change the tune, it's going to be over. But I don't see that happening. I see them comfortably 7th. I think there might be a game and a half between 7th and 8th this year, so they'll be comfortably 7th, and we'll see how they go in the final.
Okay, we are now coming to our top 6, and let's just get straight into it. So Carlton. What can I say about the Mighty Blues? Can they play a full season or a half season? 2024-20 season, we saw that. Can they play finals? Absolutely. They've got a very good membership crowd there. They got the team. They got the fan. Can Carl play finals? Yes, for me. They're not bad. When they're entertaining, they are really, they get right behind their song. And my opinion is, can Carl play a good season? Yes. Play for the full 24 games, not including the buys. Come together and you'll do well. That's my thoughts in 6th place, Carlton. Aidan, what is your 6th place?
6th place, I've got the Port Adelaide Football Club. You can boo me now if you want to, Ben, but that's how I'm going with. For me, Port Adelaide have been really strong these last couple of years. And okay, they don't get far in finals, but we're not worried about finals on this ladder. And this is the thing about the ladder system is it's about qualifying for that top 8 over the 6 months of football, and then finals happening in that final 7th month of the year. Port Adelaide are very good at qualifying for the finals. They are going to qualify again in my ladder this year, so I've got them in 6th. They have what they bring in isn't that great. They do lose a lot. So they do bring in Jack Lukosius. Here's the big question mark for me. If he can fly in and sit under the radar and get a lot of good footy, they're going to be flying. Other trades, they bring in Joe Richards, they bring in Rory Atkins, they bring in Joe Barry from the draft, they bring in Christian Moraes from the draft as well, who I thought was a really good prospect for them to bring in. What they do lose is they lose Charlie Dixon, they lose Dan Houston. Those are probably the big two that they do lose, as well as Trent McKenzie being 3rd. But with that said though, they are good enough, they always are good enough to qualify, and they will qualify again. They won't qualify in the top 4 like they have been recently, but definitely a solid 6 with Port Adelaide.
Okay, Aidan, would you like to share in 5th spot as we now come very close to the top 4?
My number 5, I've gone with the happy Hawks of the Hawthorn Football Club. Again, young list, fun list, enjoy playing footy with each other, and I can see their little surprise act from this year continuing into next year. They're a team who I think everyone's sort of still counting under the radar. They're sort of an iffy on the bubble kind of team, but I think they can move up and be a comfortable finals team this year. You know, they do bring in good players. They bring in Josh Battle, they bring in Tom Barat, they bring in, Noah Mraz through the draft, so they have some decent draft players as well. Cody Anderson at pick 64, and then what they lose is, well, they don't really lose too much. I think the biggest names coming off, Denver Granger Barras and Chad Wingard, who Denver Granger Barras is a good role player for them. Chad Wingard hasn't played a lot of footy over the last couple of years, so they're not losing a lot. They're bringing in a lot, and they've still got the core of that team from last year, so comfortable 5th for Hawthorn from my end.
Now we come to the 5th spot. Come to your Dockers there, Aidan. 3-2 Dockers. Now, yeah, it's question marks, and I can totally change. They are not a top 4. They're a strange side. They need a new coach, but that's just my opinion. But this is a team that are really weird. They can be very good they're a very good team that can play in the top 4, and kaboom, they're out. So, 5th spot for now. Let's just see what happens in the early predictions of the 2025 AFL Premiership ladder. At this stage, it's 3-2 with 5th place. Now we come to our top 4. This is big now. Some are Victorians and some are non-Victorians, and it's 50-50 from that. But before we get to my part, I'll let Aidan share his 4th spot. Take it away.
4th place for me are the Blues. And I'm going to go a step further with the Blues here. I'm going to say this is going to be their year. I've got Carlton down to win the premiership this year. We've had a couple of goes at it recently. This is really a make or break year for Michael Voss. He's probably got to be top 4, if not in the grand final as a minimum, to keep his job. And I see him doing that. Cripps is coming off a career year. They bring in the Camporelli twins, Ben Camporelli, Lucas Camporelli, very good players in their own right. They bring in Nick Haynes from GWS, and they stole the trade period, getting pick 3, and basically delisting Matt Ellis to West Coast and picking up Jagger Smith. What they lose, they don't lose a lot. They lose Jack Carroll, they lose Sam Durden, they lose Matt Kennedy, the Doggies, they lose Marchbank, they lose Martin, older listed, but their list is still there. They're forward, they've got the 2 best forwards in the competition by a mile in Kerno and Mackay. They have the best midfield in the competition by a mile with Cripps and Walt. They bring Smith into that midfield. They are going to be miles ahead of the competition, and that's why I have them finishing 4th. They might have some injury troubles during the year, because we know Cullen players are a little bit flimsy, but they're going to get everyone back for September and then going to go and take the premiership.
Now, this is only early predictions, but I'm going to put GOS Giants in my top 4 now in 4th spot. Yes, they have lost players, they bring new players, they've out players, and I think they're still going to be strong. No matter where they are, they all need GOS. We don't know where they are in the season ahead, but at this point, let's make it nice and short and shiny. Can the Giants have enough talent? Can we see them playing finals? Yes, but do they have enough to complete to the deep in the finals? No. But at this point, we'll just keep it as 4th place G-Days Giants. We're now into 3rd. The top 3, here we are. Wow. Hawthorn. Now, why I chose Hawthorn? The season they had, it was the second half. That Sam Mitchum is maybe one of the top best coaches of 2024. Could he be in the top 3? I think so. He found ways to win games of football. And like you said, was your thoughts in your whatever position in 5th place for Hawthorn, they enjoy themselves and they have a list. They've been some great talent, and look out, Hawthorn are back. They have not played finals deeply in this position since back in Alison Clarkson's days. So I think they're going to have a stronger year, even stronger. They are going to be very hard to beat overall in the field, but not like you mentioned, and I should mention that was come back in my 6th place and there, but it's going to be interesting. But that's my 3rd place for Hawthorn, Aidan.
Okay, 3rd place for me, I'm going with Collingwood. And the reason why I think Collingwood, I think they're going to have, last year was kind of a lull for them. They had a couple of decent injuries, some big injuries to big players, and they just weren't able to gel with what they had. They do lose a bit. They lose John Noble and they lose Joe Richards to Port Adelaide, both John Noble to Gold Coast. So some decent players coming up who had handy minutes. Joe Richards, not really much of a big loss, but still did play a role when required, when players were out. They do bring in Tim Memory, Harry Perryman, and Dan Houston. So, you're going to put the Dacos boys together. You're going to put Dan Houston in. You're going to let them go and play Collingwood football like good old Collingwood forever. And that is the reason why Collingwood are going to be back to gelling as a one cohesive unit, one cohesive football team, premiership oriented, and I see them finishing in 3rd spot.
We come to the top 2, and I'll start off. Let's set your Geelong Cat. Why set your Geelong Cat? Well, as you mentioned, Bailey Smith, wow, what a good pickup. Yes, ages makes a big difference in a football club. Geelong definitely has that, but he can't go against Chris Scott and the Geelong Cats. They've been like this ever since he's played, not just played, he's never played at Geelong, he's only played at Brisbane, I apologise. Since Chris Scott is maybe one of the oldest coaches in modern football, since the very first grand final he's coached at the Geelong has never placed him as a coach. He's always been there every game, every season. The ups and downs, and those times that Geelong did struggle for a long time, and that happened. They are going to be up there again. And they did that. They were in the top 4. And they got some talent. And yes, they lost some, but they bring new ones. And they find a way to be strong. So that is Geelong Cats. My section, Geelong Cats. By the way, they're my 2nd team, but that's just in general. They are my 2nd place. Aidan, take it away for your 2nd place.
My 2nd place are the defending AFL Premiers, the Brisbane Lions. And they're going to be there again. We know they're going to be there again because they are. They are a team who, the way they played that grand final, they want more. They are out for more premierships. They've got such a good young list. They bring in Levi Ashcroft. So Will Ashcroft won the Norm Smith. Now they bring in his brother Levi Ashcroft as well. The big out for them is Joey Danaher. So that's some forward power they do lose. I think they can recover from that. With that said, they're a team who are going to be up there again because they want to be up there again. And no one can stop them from being up there again apart from themselves. Because that's the mindset that Brisbane have right now, is that they are the only things that can get in their own way of success. Chris Fagan, great job on winning the premiership last year. You're going to have another crack, go back to back this year. Definitely, I think, an easy 2nd place for me. Only losing out to the team who have in 1st place.
I'll let you share your 1st place.
Thank you. So the team I have them losing out to at the top of the stick is the Sydney Swans. Now, Sydney have been on the top of the stick for quite some time, and it's another year where Sydney, I see them just running out the first 16, 17, 18 weeks, comprehensively building up that premiership points tally, extending their margin, and then having a little bit of a fall away at the back end again, but they will finish top of the ladder. I don't think they'll finish as clear as they did last year. I think Brisbane will finish equal points as them, and Brisbane will only lose to them to 2nd place on percentage. So Sydney will be minor premiers on percentage to Brisbane. They'll be a game clear of Collingwood and a game and a half clear of Carlton. That is how my top 4 shakes out. Sydney, they do not really have any major bring in. They had a decent draft. They bring in players like Jesse Natoli, who I thought was a good pickup. And they do Jacob Costanzi, who, since they were a fringe player, went to North Melbourne. They don't lose. They also lose another fringe player in Luke Parker to North Melbourne. Then Reid does retire. The big in for them is Dean Cox as coach. Now this reminds me right now of when Paul Roos stepped side, and John Longmuir took the reins of Sydney and had that team pre-built for him. John Longmuir has done the same for Dean Cox. He's got that team pre-built, ready to go. Dean Cox just walks in and takes over the wheel, and that's why I see Sydney being the minor premiers.
Thank you. Well, I'm going to go your second place, Brisbane, as my first to Brisbane. I think Clear has known they're favourites to win go back to back, and they deserve it. Wills, Acrofts, and his brother. Look, there's a lot of brothers out there in today's football. Besides the two Crouch brothers not playing anymore. That was the early 2000s and 10s. But going back to what we are on, and that is the Brisbane Lions. 20 years from last year. Now it's new season. It doesn't mean anything. My favourites are Brisbane. Why do I choose them to be my top two? If they don't finish first, they're actually second. You know, they are very hard in Brisbane. The fans are right there singing Take Me Home every time Brisbane score a goal. That is a common song the fans go around, and when that blind goes out, the fans are I think Brisbane's one of the loudest crowds in the AFL in 2024. I have awarded that. Why? Because they always go right behind. It's a good crowd. Chris Fagan's done so well to build up this success. Can they stay to connect? I think they've got the connection, and they've got a great crew behind the scenes with Chris Fagan. Like Trent Constant is right behind, helping development these players to stay in control with their in-game mode. So why Brisbane was so good on grand final day, and that's why my favourite system is premiers to the first place, the Brisbane Lions. Well, that's it from Aidan and BJ's thoughts. I hope you all enjoy this. I tell you right now, this is a first prediction. We might bring another one as an official one overall, but at this time it's just your top 18. So that is now the official first episode. The opening is now complete of the Aussie Footy Show. Hope you like that name, because I think I like it as well. Hope you all enjoyed it, and most thank you, Aidan, and I thank you all for sharing this first early position of the AFL 2025 AFL Premiership ladder. Anyway, stay tuned as we got international agenda and the Australian Sport Edition show on the BJ Show podcast. So stay tuned. There's more. Stay tuned on wherever you get your podcast. The first opening of the international agenda is on your podcast. So thank you very much. Thank you, Aidan. BJ Show is out.